If you're enjoying the Health Geeks Book Club podcast, we'd appreciate if you hit the subscribe button, leave a like, rating, or review, whichever your preferred podcatcher platform allows.
This edition of our podcast is brought to you by 360 Health and Well Balanced Nutrition.
Welcome to the Health Geeks Book Club podcast. Listen in as Kristen Norton and Eleanor Russell review all those great health and wellness books you've been wanting to read or you have read and want to talk about. Here's Kristen and Eleanor.
Hello there. It is Kristen, Eleanor, and Tim in the studio today.
Howdy, howdy, howdy.
We are wrapping up
hold on.
the discussion on this giant book that Eleanor is flipping called The Body, A Guide for Occupants. An amazing journey through the body, through history of learning what we know about the body, and talking about what we still don't know and what remains a mystery, and how, although we don't always treat it well, the body takes good care of us and keeps us alive despite a lot of things that threaten it. So we're just going to share a little bit more today, our final takeaways from this book. And
it may not be the final ones because it was so full, and I could probably keep talking, but I'm going to quit talking after this episode.
Cut Eleanor off.
Yep.
I can do that. I have the control. See?
All good book club meetings must come to an end. But no,
she's back.
This was a great, yeah. It's okay, Eleanor.
Okay.
We love you.
Oh, thank you.
So, Eleanor, what you have some stories on the tip of your tongue.
Oh, I do. Since it's such an exciting thing and we don't know everything, but we do know a little bit about when you, he has a chapter in here, Down the Hatch, the Mouth, and the Throat. That's a nice title chapter, I think. Chapter title.
Down the hatch.
That, yeah. So sometimes when you throw things down the hatch, they don't make it. They get stuck. And he has some really interesting historical stories about people who've had things stuck in their throat. But I did want to call our attention to a successful way to get things out, which, and why are we interested in this? Because even the most cautious of estimates says that choking is the fourth most common cause of accidental death in America today. And we do die from accidents at a pretty high rate. So if this is the fourth cause, this is happening more often than we know. Most of us are familiar with the well-known solution of the Heimlich maneuver. And so, of course, Bill Bryson says,
where did that come from?
That's what he said. And so we ought to know who is Dr. Henry Judah Heimlich. He was born in 1920, died in 2016. He's a surgeon from New York who invented in the 1970s. And it says the Heimlich maneuver consists of embracing a choking victim from behind and giving him or her a series of sharp hugs at the breastbone to force out the blockage like a cork from a bottle. For the record, the burst is known as a bechic blast. Another new word for us, B-E-C-H-I-C, bechic blast. Well, it seems as if Heimlich had a little bit of flair and color, because after you go to learn more about him after the discovery and sharing of this, as Bill says, let's know more about him. He evidently, this Heimlich was a showman, and he promoted the procedure relentlessly. He was on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, sold posters and T-shirts, talked to groups. He boasted that his method had saved the lives of Ronald Reagan, Cher, New York Mayor Ed Koch, and several 100,000 others, and he was not always very popular with those close to him. His friends called him a liar and a thief.
Oh, my gosh.
So this is a guy that, locally known, globally known, locally hated, or something like that. What is that acronym? Have you ever heard that? Mm-mm. For sometimes when people have an audience way far away and people like them, it's very different than the people that are close to them, which is this an example of.
Like us in Mongolia?
Yeah, maybe. Okay. Just because we're on the charts in Mongolia, we're hoping that you Americans and British folks might pick us up too.
Yes.
Those that have a native language of English would be nice. Please read ours. Listen to us, read along with us. Anyway, back to Heimlich. He says one of his own sons accused him of practicing a wide-ranging 50-year history of fraud. So there you go. Dr. Heimlich. And when he died, he said he actually practiced it once in the nursing home with an old lady that was choking. So the thing is, did he ever do it himself? Probably not. So interesting little story about how the rest of us are doing it. And I have actually been saved with the Heimlich.
Have you really?
Yes, I have. I had a husband that was very loving, and he was watching TV, and we had dogs, so I had a dog gate up between the TV room and the kitchen, and I'm in the kitchen, and there's like a 4 or 5 day old donut on the counter. That's something we should all eat, right? So I took a bite of it, and it got stuck in my throat, and I thought, oh my God, I couldn't breathe. And I'm going, ooh, 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 and I'm leaning over the dog gate, and he's watching TV saying, are you in trouble? And I'm going, and he came over and he got me, and he popped that dry old donut out. But I thought, there I am. I'm going to be dead. There's my tombstone. It says, she ate a 5-day-old donut and died. That was going to be my epitaph.
I
How
witnessed
stupid was that?
one of my friends get it in Costa Rica. Mm-hmm. He was choking on a piece of steak, and an American from at another table came over and we didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
And dislodged it, and we
Saved
bought them
them.
dinner.
Yeah. It's scary. I mean, and you think you can get it out, and you do everything, and you all of a sudden don't have oxygen.
But why does that work? Why does the Heimlich maneuver work?
A pressure. When we had Kelly McDonald with us, and we were talking.
Holly.
We were talking about the pressures inside those internal chambers and the muscular partitions between them. You can build up a sizable amount of force by compressing a closed system, and we know that, right? If you have a closed system and you squeeze it, something's going to give.
Yeah,
and that is a closed system.
It's got to go somewhere. Yeah.
It's got to go somewhere, and if you do it abruptly with enough force, your body can't.
Blows the top.
It blows the top. Yeah. So I think that Kristen was intrigued by a collection of things that people had swallowed, and someone kept and put in a museum somewhere. So what's that story about?
So this doctor named, I'm going to say it wrong, Chevalier.
Thank
you. Dr. Jackson, that's what I'm going to call him. But he had a 75-year-long career of getting foreign bodies out of people's throats, esophaguses, and lungs. And he kept every one of these objects. And in fact, like if there was a family who came with a child and they couldn't really afford to pay him, he's like, that's all right. I just want to keep the object once I get it. So he has this collection at the Mutter Museum in Philadelphia. And now I want to go visit because I'm really intrigued. There's apparently all these little things. Lots of little jacks. You remember the game Jacks? Mm-hmm. Scary looking, like a ship that's like the size of your thumb, like a toy. Just all these kind of random things that were down people's throats. It's amazing.
Yeah, at the School of Medicine that I was associated with, there were all sorts of x-rays of people that had things in their body that weren't supposed to be there, either through the rectum or through the mouth. And half of dentures, a lot of people swallow their dentures. And I had not been aware of that. I thought, that's awfully large to swallow. And it's just stuck there, and you got to get it out.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, he says in this museum, more than 80% of the patients on record were under 15 years old. So these were mostly
children
picking up rent. I would think that now we're more aware of that and we have safer toys, and parents are smart about batteries and crazy things that kids can put in there.
No.
Yeah, I was going to say parents are I don't think they're any smarter. Some of us might be.
Hopefully.
More attentive.
But not that there's batteries. I mean, these are just toys, but that's crazy.
It makes you wonder about somebody that likes to hold on to those things. And the building still exists, and the collection. Is it on public display, or do you have to go ask to see it? I think maybe they were in a drawer in the basement or something.
Oh, I don't know if you have to ask, but I did remember him saying you pull out these drawers.
I think so too. Yeah, so I think
things.
It's a museum, so it's in the collection, but probably not.
Well, you asked, like, why would you collect these? I think he was wanting to educate people. It says he thought this information would be useful to other doctors. Bronchoscopy.
No.
Bronchoesophagology.
Oh, bronchoesophagy.
Close.
The bronchi
That's
and
what
the
your mouth said.
Ology, the ology of broncho.
and esophagus
Yeah.
together. Yeah,
That's
when
really
you put
great at pronouncing things.
when you put a tube down there and you can see, because that is the throat is a shared passageway that goes to the
Yes.
respiratory system and to the digestive system, and that's why it can complicate if it's directed down the wrong path.
So that study was just in an early stage, and he was wanting to educate other doctors, so learn what to expect. And
Well, pathologists keep a lot of things too. It's interesting. They have jars of all sorts of stuff in collections all around the world, probably, of oddities that they have discovered in surgical procedures or whatever. And it's like, oh, okay.
that just random things you can see and do. I remember I was fascinated by when they had the body
Exhibit
exhibits where they would show just open bodies and
plasticized bodies. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that was amazing. I thought it was so cool because I'm like his perfect reader because I'm intrigued, but I don't want to be a doctor, don't want to be a nurse. I just want to be able to know a little bit more about how this body keeps me going. And that was cool.
Yeah, I struggle with that. Sometimes, another conversation about why I struggle with the intricacies. When he talked about the dissecting room, and he went in there, and I heard him talk about it on his TV thing too. There's a shock and wow factor of that experience that, as an instructor of that, and knowing the donations of the bodies that were given, I don't think they donated so that people could be shocked and awed. With just a light hit and out. I think they really were intending their donation to, and I may be wrong because I haven't talked to all of them, but that their bodies would be used for the betterment of the practice of medicine. And so we used to do somewhat of a dedication service after the dissections were done and memorializing the people that had given the gift to the students, and it was a very moving thing. So at some point, this is fun and shock and awe and wow and that cool, but there's my struggle.
Yeah, well, and Bill Bryson talks about how the place where he was, they take it very seriously.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, we did. Yeah, and there was a.
But there was another one that didn't, and they were like taking pictures with the body and. Yeah.
On the internet.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was so inappropriate.
Right. But most places hopefully have a nice way to treat those bodies and with respect.
But still, even as a learner, it is such a shock to look at a dead body and touch it and put your hands in it and move. I mean, it's something you have to confront. Mm-hmm. And you do that so that you can put your hands into a living body and make a difference. Right. But it's not the same thing. Like he says, it is nothing like the living body. It's the dead body. And he even says it looks like your turkey. He made that comment, and it's like, oh, yeah, it does, actually, the muscles and things. But
and he said that makes it all so much more amazing that, at one point, this same material was alive and thriving.
Mm-hmm. But when you are doing that as your initiation into it, and a lot of medical students consider that an initiation experience because once you've done that, you're not the same. And humor as a way to get through that. Humor serves us well. So in the quietness of the study, sometimes people do things or say things that are totally inappropriate in the general public, but it's done in a cloistered place with guidance and maybe insight from the facilitators that are saying, you realize what you just said. That's not good. So that's my struggle with.
Did you teach the class with cadavers?
Yes, I did.
So you're coming from that experience.
Yeah. And that's why, some of the things in here I go, because I have a different level of experience than the man on the street, which I feel he is. He's the man on the street saying, oh, I want to go find out about this, and I'm going to ask people questions, and I'm going to get answers, and I'm going to go to the library and read. It's amazing what he learned.
Right, and the professor in you is like, you could have said that a little differently.
Yeah, and you might have missed a little bit of the nuance there that could have been done better. But let's talk about yawns, because I think they're fascinating. And, I said one of the things that Bill Bryson does in this book is he says, as much as we know about our bodies, there's still a lot we don't understand. And so here's the yawn. Why do we do that?
Nobody knows.
No. And when I was reading it, I yawned. It was so funny. I was reading it, and I went, oh, and then he says, oh, and, it's contagious. And I went, I just read it. I didn't even see it. But the idea of the yawn was implanted in my little gray matter, and off I came. But have you ever experienced that yourself? When people yawn, you yawn?
I don't as much as other people, but yeah, if you see someone yawn, then you do it, and all of a sudden the whole room is yawning.
Yeah.
You yawn, and the world yawns with you.
He says it's a mysterious but universal harbinger of weariness, the yawn. No one understands why we yawn. Babies yawn in the womb. They hiccup, too. People in comas yawn, which I did not know. It is the ubiquitous part of life, and yet what exactly it does for us is unknown.
Hold up, I didn't catch that the first time. People in comas yawn?
That's what he said.
Oh, that's wild.
And there's not a footnote on that. Yeah.
And then there was a guy who hiccuped for years and years on end.
Yeah.
Mentioned hiccups in there. Okay.
Yeah. He says one suggestion is it's somehow connected with shedding excess carbon dioxide, though no one has ever explained in what way. Another is that it brings a rush of cooler air to the head, thus slightly banishing drowsiness, though I have yet to meet anyone who has felt refreshed or energized after yawning.
So, and then there's one other thing that my mind is tying to yawning is that, with tapping, we've done a couple books about tapping and emotional work, with the acupressure points on the face. Mm-hmm. I've seen some videos where they're like, okay, once you do this, you've reset your system and you're going to yawn. So I wonder if it's tied to the autonomic system.
Well, Bill maybe didn't read about tapping.
Yeah.
Maybe this is something he'll have to explore. I think it's a good idea.
Okay, I have another random thing.
Okay,
I don't know if this is going to be too bouncing around, but the last thing I want to mention that was fun about this book is the death of George Washington.
No.
Do y'all know that story?
Well, tell us again.
So back in that time, doctors would bleed people. Mm-hmm. So
bloodletting.
Yeah, they would just drain the blood because the blood was bad. And so George Washington just had a throat infection and was recovering. But because he was who he was, he had 4 doctors come try to fix his just little throat infection. And they bled him. They drained 40 liters of blood unnecessarily. And he was killed by his doctors trying to help him when it was simply a throat infection that he probably could have overcame on his own, maybe. I don't know. But he definitely didn't need all that.
No. There's some school of thought I ran across somewhere that was saying bloodletting might be okay now in the case of, and this was tied to blood transfusions, which there's a really great description in this book about blood typing and who figured that all out. But when you donate blood, you lose a pint of blood or so. And if you have an overload of iron, which can be very bad for you because your body doesn't really excrete iron, it recycles it, and you can get an overload called hemosiderosis, I believe is what it's called. And it's not healthy. It hurts your heart and all sorts of stuff. So by letting out blood that has iron in it, it's one way that can be protective for some people. I don't think they do that very often, but there's some research papers I've read about blood donations and the decrease in heart attacks and relationship to iron.
Okay.
So maybe George would have gotten that if they hadn't done it. Maybe he was just going to die anyway. Probably not. I think that his death was due to
I think the doctors were trying to save him and made it worse.
Yeah, I think maybe so. Another random tidbit. Do you all like Mexican food?
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Is it the rage
Who
these
doesn't?
days? And do you put jalapenos on yours?
Oh, I can't handle jalapenos.
How about habaneros?
I do like jalapeno. Again, cut up. I don't want big chunks of it.
Well, they're kind of a good thing to have because they have a compound in them called capsaicin, these hot peppers, hot chilies. And the capsaicin causes your body to release endorphins, and it's not at all clear why. And that provides us with literally a warm glow of pleasure. So a lot of us do like hot peppers and feel good when we eat them, but how hot can you tolerate? I have a son-in-law who wants the hottest pepper you can find. And so XXXXX. Well, there's a unit of measure for the heat in a pepper called a Scoville. Have you all ever heard of that?
Mm-hmm. Scoville units.
Yeah, there you go. So who was Scoville? Because Bill wanted to know. He said, who's Scoville?
Where did this come from?
Yeah, so Wilbur is his name. Wilbur Scoville, 1865 to 1942, was an unassuming American pharmacist who had no known interest in hot dishes and very possibly never tasted a genuinely spicy food in his life. Now, he's the one that's credited with this. But he spent much of his time at the Massachusetts College of Pharmacy churning out academic papers and just to cross this idea of figuring out how to measure hot. And the warmth of this product by the pharmaceutical company called Heat was very popular. And so he used that as a technique to get to the hotness of the pepper. And their Scoville ratings are between 50 and 100 is a bell pepper. Jalapeno is between 2,500 to 5,000 Scovilles. And nowadays people breed peppers to make them as hot as possible. My son-in-law wants one. And the record holder is the Carolina Reaper at 2.2 million Scovilles.
Yep.
There you go.
Yeah.
So if you ever wanted to know about Scovilles, thank Wilbur.
Doesn't he say something that, like, because I always think my mouth feels like it's on fire. Is it the same receptors as if you really were, like, burning yourself? I feel like I read that.
Yeah, I think so, too. That rings a bell. Yeah, the pain in the nerve. He has a section on nerves and pain, and I think he says they get confused on the taste buds. There's a pain receptor
right,
in
so that's
there.
why it literally feels like your tongue is on fire.
Yeah. He does say that the British Medical Journal reported that Chinese adults who ate a lot of capsaicin were 14% less likely to die from any cause during the period of the study compared with less adventurous eaters. So I'd say spice up your food a little bit. It might be good for you.
I don't want to.
Well, and it also cools your body down. Capsaicin does. That's why people in the Central American area near the equator and all that stuff eat hot food because it cools your body down, makes you sweat, gets rid of all the stuff. But I've also noticed too that, like, if I have a stopped up nose, if I have a sinus infection or something,
your nose red.
it does. But if I eat something hot, I don't necessarily feel it as hot.
Oh, interesting. When you have a stuffed up nose.
Yeah. And also for the people who like spicy but need a little help with that, milk is a perfect soother for.
Yes, it is.
Water is not.
Water does not work.
Right, you got to get something that kind of coats the tongue.
Milk
with
is
that
the
fat.
way to go.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We're getting ready to wrap it up, aren't we? So I thought one of the things, towards the end of the book, he talks about when medicine goes bad. And it was kind of tough to read. It was pretty rough on the American system. Talking about all the pharmaceutical problems, over-treatment, how we've messed up the antibiotic thing by over-prescribing. It didn't paint a very happy picture about submitting yourself to the American medical system, that you were probably putting yourself at risk, maybe 50% of the time, that the outcomes are not what they say. And one example he gives of that is a case in point is the drug atenolol beta blocker, very, very prevalent drug designed to lower blood pressure, which has been widely prescribed since 1976. A study in 2004 involving a total of 24,000 patients found that atenolol did indeed reduce blood pressure, but did not reduce heart attacks or fatalities compared with giving no treatment at all. And he gives several examples of therapies that don't produce results. And he agrees with so many of the other people we've read about move your body. If exercise could be put into a pill, you would not have to take so many of these pharmaceuticals that have side effects and interact with each other and so on and so forth. So it's that the discipline that we're lacking. He doesn't say that. I'm suggesting perhaps it's a discipline that we are lacking in America that is causing our problems. And he kind of ends it up here talking about he doesn't want to minimize the enormous and undoubted benefits of a modern medicine system, but it's an inescapable fact that is far from perfect in ways that we aren't always widely appreciating. In 2013, an international team of researchers investigated common medical practices and found 146 in which a current standard practice either had no benefit at all or was inferior to the practice it replaced. And a similar study in Australia found 156 of those practices. So the simple fact, he says, is medical science alone cannot do it all, but then it doesn't need to. Other factors can significantly affect outcomes in surprising ways. And this one is what I love, just being kind, for instance. And a study in New Zealand with diabetic patients found that a proportion suffering severe complications was 40% lower among patients who were treated by doctors who rated high for compassion.
I feel like we've discussed something similar.
Yeah, the environment we create and the way we treat each other has a lot to do. And he was talking about longevity in here, and he said visiting with a family member. This is assuming you have a functional family, I think, and maybe a family you like. He didn't qualify that, but having a weekly connection with someone you love, I guess, that's in a family, can dramatically improve your quality of life and length of life. Is this something that's simple? That just seems like, nah. But he backs it up with studies.
Yeah, and I mean, ever since reading the Blue Zones book, that has stuck with me. And coming up on our list is another book about the longest study on happiness and how the social interactions make such a big difference.
And so, Kristen and I are pretty interested in the wellness industry, which the gospel of wellness kind of took some daggers to. But that constellation of holistic wellness is not just one thing. It's not what you put in your mouth. It's not how much sleep you get. It's not how much exercise. It's all of it together, right?
Right.
But being thoughtful.
And another, on that note about lifestyle change, it's come up a lot lately that we can have all of this information and it's still we're still human and it still can be challenging to implement it all. In fact, Bill Bryson, after learning all of this about the body in the Washington Post, was asked, "So, have you made any lifestyle changes as a result of this research?" And I just want to read his answer. "I keep meaning to, but I'm in the middle of doing this book promotion tour, which means traveling. That means eating at all the wrong times and having airplane meals. And also you kind of feel at the end of the long day like you're entitled to a drink. It's very hard to be terribly virtuous, but I promise you as soon as I get all this over with, I'm going to be absolutely a saint." So,
I don't believe it. That doesn't sound like dedication.
He's human.
We
all
all
human.
are. Yeah. And so we need to enjoy living. I mean, if you can't enjoy the life you've got, what's the point of living it? You hope you can contribute something to the world, but you also have to have gratitude for just the opportunity to be alive. I mean, it's great.
Right.
I mean, what else are you going to do if you're not alive?
And,
Right on.
and the awe that he has about the human body is what really kept me listening to this book.
So I was hoping you were going to say that you thought it was a good read, because I thought, she's going to say, ugh. But there's nothing more. I mean, this is really fascinating to me, and I'm unusual, but I think biology and the study of life, and particularly the one that I'm living in, the body, is relevant to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's good information, but nothing too technical or in the weeds, and just good to know, interesting information.
Yeah, and the history thread and it's like a travelogue. So so we're going to recommend it.
I would recommend listening to it. If you just go look at this book, and then you'll know what I mean.
War and Peace of health.
It's like almost like a Bible.
Yeah, I think that's what you said the first time you looked at it. Yeah, it was a tedious read. I think listening might be a good recommendation. But if you like to just read little bits at a time, you can do it in this book. You can read the chapters don't have to be read in sequence, actually. So if there's a part of it, and the pictures, like I said, and I have not seen the illustrated edition, which I would like to see. Photographs in here are really good. And so I think if you're interested in improving your lifestyle and maybe doing some supplementation, talk to me, Eleanor Russell, at 360health4u.com.
And well-balanced nutrition can help you have healthier eating habits and a good relationship with food. Visit us at wellbalancednutrition.com and apply for a free clarity coaching call to see if we're a good fit.
And did you know that the Health Geeks Book Club is the most desirable part of the Less Desirables podcast network? Along with this podcast, you can listen to the Less Desirables, Fan Interference, Beeswax Vinyl Daily, Wheeler's Dog, Asylum, the Kiss podcast, and I Remember Now, the Queensryche podcast. You can find all these podcasts and their latest episodes on our network directory and website, tldpodnetwork.com. Again, tldpodnetwork.com. And check out the new Camel City Radio internet radio station, a fully licensed commercial radio station. We play everything under the popular music categories. Visit Camel City Radio on various social media and at camelcityradio.com.
And opinions stated in this podcast are solely those of the contributors and are not necessarily those of our distributors or hosting company. This podcast is copyrighted, and no part can be reproduced without the expressed written consent of Kristen and Eleanor.